Here's a question that keeps engaged couples awake at night. Should we combine our bank accounts or keep them separate? And here's a follow-up question that makes it even more complicated. What if one of us makes twice as much as the other? And what if one of us has student loans and the other doesn't? What if we have completely different spending styles? I'm going to let you in on a little secret. There's no one right way to structure your finances as a couple, but there is a right way for you as a couple, and by the end of this module, you're going to know exactly what that is. We're going to explore 3 main approaches to combining finances, figure out how to handle income differences fairly, tackle the tricky issue of pre-existing debt, and create a system that actually works for both of your personalities. Ready to design your financial structure? Let's dive in. Introduction and foundation setting. In Module 1, you discovered your money stories and values. In Module 2, you identified your financial personalities and learned how to work with your differences. Now it's time to put that understanding into action by creating the actual structure of your shared financial life. This is where things get practical. We're going to talk about bank accounts, bill paying, credit scores, and all those nuts and bolts details that aren't very romantic, but are absolutely essential for a strong financial partnership. Now, some of you might be feeling nervous about this topic. Maybe you're worried about losing your financial independence, or maybe you're concerned about how to handle the fact that you make different amounts of money. Those are normal and valid concerns, and we're going to address all of them. Here's what I want you to remember. The goal isn't to find the perfect system that works for every couple. The goal is to find the system that works perfectly for your relationship based on your personalities, your values, and your specific situation. We'll start by exploring the 3 main approaches to combining finances, then we'll tackle some of the most common challenges couples face, and finally, you'll create your own customized financial structure. So, let's get started. Section 1, the 3 main approaches to combining finances. When it comes to combining your financial lives, you essentially have 3 options. Let me walk you through each one, including the pros and cons, so you can see which approach resonates with you. Approach number 1, the fully joint approach. What's mine is yours. In this approach, everything gets combined. All income goes into joint accounts. All bills are paid from shared money. All spending decisions are made together. You might have one checking account, one savings account, and shared credit cards. You operate as a single financial unit. This approach works well for couples who have similar financial personalities, make roughly similar incomes, and genuinely want to make all the financial decisions together. It also works well for couples where one person prefers to delegate financial management to their partner. The benefits are simplicity and complete transparency. There are no questions about your money versus my money. Everything is shared, which can feel very unifying. It's also the easiest approach for budgeting and tracking expenses because everything flows through the same accounts. The potential challenges include loss of individual financial autonomy and potential conflict over every purchase decision and difficulty if the partners have different spending styles. Some people feel like they need permission to spend money even on small personal items. Approach number 2, the fully separate approach, yours, mine, and split down the middle. In this approach, you keep everything separate. You each maintain your own checking accounts, savings accounts, and credit cards. Shared expenses like rent, groceries, and utilities are split according to whatever formula you agree on. Maybe 50-50, maybe it's proportional to your income. This works well for couples who value financial independence, have very different money management styles, or have complicated financial situations like business ownership or significant premarital assets. It can also work well when partners have very different income levels and want to maintain separate spending power. The benefits include maintained individual autonomy, no arguments about personal spending choices, and preserved credit independence. Each person can manage money according to their own style without affecting their partner. The challenges can include complexity in managing shared expenses, potential inequality if incomes are very different, and sometimes a feeling of being financial roommates rather than true partners. It can also be more complicated for taxes and long-term planning. Approach number 3, the hybrid approach, ours, yours, and mine. This is actually the most popular approach among younger couples, and it's my personal favorite because it combines the benefits of both previous approaches. In the hybrid approach, you have joint accounts for shared expenses and goals, plus individual accounts for personal spending. Here's how it typically works. Both partners contribute a set amount each month to joint accounts that cover rent, groceries, utilities, shared savings goals, and other household expenses. Then each person keeps whatever is left over in their individual accounts for personal spending, individual goals, and discretionary purchases. This works well for most couples, especially those with different spending styles, different incomes, or different personal interests that require spending money. The benefits include shared responsibility for household expenses, individual autonomy for personal spending, and flexibility to accommodate different personalities and income levels. You get the unity of working towards shared goals, plus the freedom of individual choice. The main challenge is that it requires a bit more setup and ongoing management. You need to decide how much each person contributes to the joint accounts and what expenses count as shared versus individual. Now, as I was describing these three approaches, you probably found yourself gravitating towards one of them. You might have thought, oh, that sounds perfect, or that would never work for us. Here's what's important to understand. There's no morally superior approach. The fully joint approach isn't more committed than keeping separate accounts. The separate approach isn't more independent than combining everything. They're just different tools for different couples. The key is choosing the approach that fits your personalities, your values, and your practical situation. And speaking of practical situations, let's talk about some of the most common challenges couples face when combining their financial lives. Section 2. Handling income disparities fairly. One of the most common concerns I hear from couples is, what do we do when one of us makes significantly more than the other? This is a really important question because it affects not just your bank account structure, but also your sense of fairness and partnership in the relationship. Let me introduce you to Maria and Jake. Maria is a software engineer making $95,000 a year. Jake is a teacher making $45,000 a year. They love each other deeply and want to build a life together, but they're struggling with how to handle their $50,000 income difference fairly. The question is, what does fair actually mean? Does fair mean they pay exactly half of all the expenses? Does fair mean they each contribute the same percentage of their income? Does fair mean something else entirely? Option 1, equal dollar contribution. In this approach, Maria and Jake would split all shared expenses 50-50. If the rent is $2,000, they each pay $1,000. If groceries are $400, they each pay $200. The benefit is simplicity in a sense that they're contributing equally. The challenge is that after paying her half of the expenses, Maria has much more money left over for personal spending, savings, and goals. Jake might feel financially constrained while Maria has significant discretionary income. Option 2, proportional contribution. In this approach, they each contribute the same percentage of their income to shared expenses. Since Maria makes 68% of their combined income and Jake makes 32%, Maria would pay 68% of shared expenses and Jake would pay 32%. So if their total shared expenses are $3,000 a month, Maria would contribute about $2,040 and Jake would contribute about $960. This leaves them with more similar amounts of discretionary income after covering their shared obligations. The benefit is that they both have roughly the same financial flexibility after covering shared expenses. The challenge is that one person is paying significantly more in actual dollar amounts, which can sometimes feel unbalanced. Option 3, hybrid approach with adjustment. Some couples use a combination, equal contribution up to the lower earner's comfort level, then proportional contribution for anything beyond that. Maria and Jake might agree that they'll split basic living expenses equally, rent, utilities, and groceries. But for lifestyle upgrades like a nicer apartment, eating out frequently, or expensive vacations, they'll use proportional contributions since these are driven by the higher earner's ability to afford a more expensive lifestyle. Here's the key insight. This isn't really about math, it's about values and partnership. The question isn't, what's the mathematically perfect way to split expenses? The question is, what approach helps us both feel like valued, respected partners in this relationship? Some things to consider when making this decision. Is the income difference temporary or permanent? If Jake is in graduate school and will be earning more in 2 years, that might affect your approach. Are there non-financial contributions to consider? Maybe Jake handles more of the household management, cooking, and other tasks that have economic value. What are your long-term goals? If you want to build wealth together, the higher earner contributing more to joint savings might accelerate your shared progress. How does each approach make you both feel? Does the equal split make the lower earner feel financially stressed? Does the proportional split make the higher earner feel taken advantage of? Here's what Maria and Jake ultimately decided. They used proportional contribution for fixed expenses like rent and utilities, equal contribution for variable expenses like groceries and entertainment, and they each contribute the same percentage of their income to joint savings goals. This approach honored both of their values. Jake didn't want to feel like he was being supported, and Maria didn't want their income difference to prevent them from living comfortably or reaching their goals together. The most important thing is that you both feel good about whatever system you choose. There's no external standard of fairness that matters more than what feels right to both of you. Section 3, dealing with pre-existing debt. Now, let's talk about something that affects a lot of couples. What to do when one or both partners bring debt into the relationship. This could be student loans, credit card debt, auto loans, or any other kind of debt that existed before you got together. Meet Sarah and Chris. Sarah has $35,000 in student loans from graduate school. Chris has about $8,000 in credit card debt from a period of unemployment 2 years ago. They're trying to figure this out. Is this our debt or individual debt? Who's responsible for paying it off? How do they handle it fairly? The fundamental question is whether debt that existed before the relationship becomes shared responsibility after marriage, or whether it remains individual responsibility. Perspective number 1, individual responsibility approach. In this approach, each person remains responsible for the debt they brought into the relationship. Sarah pays her student loans, Chris pays his credit card debt, and their shared financial plan works around these individual obligations. This approach makes sense when the debts are truly from individual decisions and don't benefit the joint household. It also makes sense when the amounts are manageable for each person individually or when partners have very different attitudes about debt. Perspective number 2, shared responsibility approach. In this approach, all debt becomes our debt once you're married. You tackle it together as a team, regardless of who originally incurred it. This approach makes sense when you're fully combining finances anyway, when one person's debt load would be overwhelming for them individually, or when the debt was incurred for things that benefit both partners, like education that led to higher earning potential. But here's what I see working for most couples: a practical middle ground that considers both the emotional and financial aspects. The hybrid approach. Sarah and Chris decided on this approach. Each person remains technically responsible for their own pre-existing debt, but they create their joint budget in a way that helps both debts get paid off efficiently. Here's how it works. They calculated that Sarah's minimum student loan payment is $350 per month, and Chris's minimum credit card payment is $200 per month. When they created their joint budget, they made sure that after contributing to their shared expenses, Sarah had at least $350 available for her loans, and Chris had at least $200 available for his credit cards. But here's the teamwork part. They also identified an extra $300 per month in their joint budget that they're using to accelerate debt payoff. They're applying this extra money to Chris's credit card debt first since it has a higher interest rate, and once that's paid off, they'll apply it to Sarah's student loans. This approach works because it maintains individual responsibility, important for Chris's sense of not burdening Sarah, while also creating a team approach to becoming debt-free faster, important for their shared financial goals. Here are some important things to consider when making decisions about pre-existing debt. Interest rates. High interest debt like credit cards should usually be the priority regardless of whose name is on it, because the interest costs affect your entire financial picture. Tax implications. Student loan interest is tax deductible, which affects the real cost of that debt. Emotional factors. How does each person feel about their debt? Is there shame, stress, or other emotional factors that need to be addressed? Legal factors. In some states, debt acquired before marriage remains individual even after marriage, while in others, it can become marital debt. Here's how to have this conversation with your partner. I want us to talk about how to handle the debt we're each bringing into this relationship. I don't want either of us to feel burdened or resentful, and I want us to create a plan that helps us both feel like we're working together towards our goals. What are your thoughts on how we should approach this? Remember, debt doesn't have to be a relationship killer. When couples approach it as a team, even when maintaining individual responsibility, it often brings them closer together and creates a sense of shared accomplishment when it's paid off. Interactive exercise, account structure decision tree. All right, it's time to put everything we've discussed into practice. I'm going to walk you through some real-world scenarios, and I want you to think through how you would handle each situation based on what you've learned about account structures and fairness. Grab something to write with. I'm going to present 3 scenarios. For each one, discuss with your partner what account structure would work best. How would you handle expenses fairly? What potential challenges do you see, and how would you address them? Scenario number 1, Alex and Jordan's situation. Alex makes $80,000 as a marketing manager. Jordan makes $45,000 as a social worker. They have very different spending styles. Alex is a natural saver who researches every purchase. Jordan is more spontaneous and uses spending to celebrate and de-stress. They want to buy a house together in 2 years and are trying to figure out how to structure their finances to reach that goal while maintaining their individual personalities. How should Alex and Jordan structure their accounts? Should they use joint, separate, or hybrid? How should they split their shared expenses given the income difference? How should they handle Jordan's more spontaneous spending style in a way that doesn't derail their house-saving goal? And what system would help them reach their house goal while honoring both of their personalities? Pause the video for the discussion. Take about 3 minutes to discuss the scenario with your partner. Let's go on to scenario 2, Taylor and Sam's situation. Taylor and Sam make nearly identical income, $65,000 and $67,000. However, Taylor has $40,000 in student loans with a $415 monthly payment, while Sam has no debt. Sam also received a $20,000 inheritance last year that's sitting in a savings account. They're trying to figure out how to structure their finances fairly given these differences. How should they handle the student loan payments? Individual responsibility or shared? How should they factor in Sam's inheritance? Keep it separate or make it part of their joint planning? What account structure would work best given their similar incomes but different financial starting points? And how can they make sure both people feel the arrangement is fair? Discuss this scenario for about 3 minutes. Go ahead and pause the video here and restart it when you're done. And let's go on to scenario 3, Casey and Morgan's situation. Casey is a freelance graphic designer with highly variable income. Some months, $3,000, some months, $8,000, averaging about $65,000 per year. Morgan is a nurse with a steady $58,000 salary. Casey values financial flexibility and gets anxious about rigid budgets. Morgan values predictability and likes to know exactly where money is going. They want to find a system that works for both their income variability and their different personalities. How should they handle Casey's variable income in their joint planning? What account structure would work given their different needs for flexibility versus predictability? How should they split expenses when Casey's monthly income changes dramatically? And what systems could help Morgan feel secure while giving Casey the flexibility they need? Take about 3 minutes to discuss this final scenario. Go ahead and pause the video here and restart it when you're done. Now, think about what you learned from working through these scenarios. Which situations felt most similar to your own? What solutions appeal to you? What challenges did you identify that you hadn't thought of before? Often, working through other people's scenarios helps us clarify our own preferences and concerns. You might have discovered that you feel strongly about certain approaches, or you might have realized that you're more flexible than you initially thought. Section 4, Credit Scores and Joint Financial Responsibility. Before we create your custom financial structure, I need to talk to you about something that affects every married couple, but that most people don't fully understand: how marriage impacts your credit scores and credit responsibilities. First, let me clear up a common myth. Getting married does not automatically combine your credit scores. You will always have individual credit reports and credit scores even after you're married. However, several things do happen when you get married that affect your credit situation. When you open joint credit accounts, like a joint credit card or a mortgage in both names, both of your credit scores will be affected by how that account is managed. If you make payments on time, both credit scores benefit. If you miss payments, both credit scores are hurt. If you add your spouse as an authorized user on your credit card, their credit report will typically show that account's payment history. This can help someone with limited credit history, but it can also hurt them if the primary account holder misses payments. When you apply for major loans together, like a mortgage, lenders will look at both of your credit scores. They'll often use the lower of the two scores to determine your interest rate and loan terms. Here's what that means practically. If one partner has a significantly better credit score than the other, you might want to keep certain accounts in only the higher credit person's name to get better interest rates. If one person has poor credit, you might want to focus on improving that person's credit score before applying for major loans together. If you're planning to make a major purchase in the next year or two, you should both check your credit reports now and address any issues. If one or both partners need to improve their credit scores, here are the most effective strategies. Pay bills on time. This is 35% of your credit score and the most important factor. Keep credit card balances low. Try to use less than 30% of your available credit and ideally less than 10%. Don't close old credit cards. The length of your credit history matters, so keep old accounts open even if you don't use them. Consider becoming an authorized user. If your partner has excellent credit, being added as an authorized user on their oldest, best managed account can help your score. Monitor your credit reports. Check for errors and dispute anything that's incorrect. Here's how to approach credit as a team. Both partners should know their current credit scores and understand what's on their credit reports. Create a plan for improving any credit issues before you need to apply for major loans. Decide which partner's name should be on which accounts based on credit scores and your overall financial strategy. Consider the timing of major purchases and credit applications to minimize negative impacts. It's also important to maintain some individual credit identity even in marriage. Make sure both partners have at least one credit account in their name only. This protects you if something happens to your spouse, and it ensures that both people maintain their own credit history. Don't panic if one partner has less than perfect credit. Credit scores can be improved, and there are strategies for working around credit challenges. The key is being honest about your credit situation and making a plan together. Creating your custom financial structure. Now it's time to create your own custom financial structure. You've learned about the different approaches, you've thought through various scenarios, and you understand the credit implications. Now let's put it all together into a system that works specifically for your relationship. I'm going to give you a framework to work through together. This isn't about finding the perfect system. It's about finding the system that fits your personalities, your values, your income situation, and your goals. Step 1, choose your basic structure. Based on everything we've discussed, which basic approach appeals to you most? Fully joint, everything combined; fully separate, everything is individual; or hybrid, a combination of joint and individual accounts. Talk through why this approach feels right for your situation. What are the benefits you're hoping to get? What concerns do you have about the other approaches? Step 2, address income differences. If you have different incomes, how do you want to handle shared expenses? Equal dollar amounts? Proportional to your income? Some hybrid approach? Or some other creative solution? Remember, the goal is for both people to feel that the arrangement is fair and sustainable. Step 3, handle pre-existing debt. If either of you has debt from before the relationship, how do you want to approach it? Individual responsibility, a shared responsibility, or a hybrid approach where you maintain individual responsibility but work together strategically? Step 4, define decision-making authority. What financial decisions can each person make independently, and what requires a discussion? You might decide purchases under X dollars can be made individually, purchases between X and Y require a quick check-in, and purchases over Y require full discussion and agreement. Step 5, plan for different personalities. How will you accommodate your different financial personalities within the structure? If one person is a saver and one is a spender, how will your system honor both approaches? If one person likes detailed tracking and one prefers simplicity, how will you balance those needs? Step 6, create your implementation plan. What accounts do you need to open or close? What automatic transfers or payments do you need to set up? When will you start this new system? How will you track and evaluate how it's working? In your course materials, you'll find a worksheet called Our Financial Structure Agreement that walks you through each of these steps in detail. Take about 15 minutes right now to complete it together. Remember, this doesn't have to be perfect on the first try. You can always adjust and refine your system as you learn what works and what doesn't. The important thing is that you're creating it together based on mutual understanding and respect for each other's needs. Also, remember that your system might need to change over time. What works when you're both working full-time might need adjustment if one of you goes back to school or starts a business or stays home with children. That's normal and expected. Wrap up and looking ahead. Excellent work. You've just tackled one of the most practical and important aspects of combining your lives, creating a financial structure that works for both of you. Today, you've explored the 3 main approaches to combining finances. You've learned how to handle income differences and pre-existing debt fairly, understood how marriage affects your credit, and most importantly, you've created your own custom financial structure based on your unique situation and personalities. If this felt challenging or if you discovered some areas where you and your partner see things differently, that's completely normal. You're making important decisions that will affect your daily life together, so it makes sense to think through them carefully. In Module 4, we're going to tackle some topics that many couples find even more challenging: complete financial transparency, debt elimination strategies, and how to have difficult money conversations without damaging your relationship. We'll talk about how to disclose financial information you might not have shared yet, how to create a joint plan for becoming debt-free, and how to address money issues that might be causing stress or shame. Before moving on to the next module, I want you to implement the financial structure you just designed. Open any new accounts you need, set up any new automatic transfers, and start using your system. Pay attention to how it feels in practice. What's working well? What feels awkward or complicated? What adjustments might you need to make? Also, if you haven't already done so, both of you should check your credit reports and scores so you have that information for future planning. Remember, creating a strong financial partnership is a process, not a destination. You're building something together that will serve you throughout your entire marriage. Every conversation you have, every decision you make together, every challenge you work through, it's all strengthening your ability to work as a team. Next time, we're going to dive into some of the more emotionally challenging aspects of money in relationships. But you've already built a strong foundation of understanding and practical systems, so you're well prepared for those conversations. Keep up the great work. And remember, you're not just combining bank accounts, you're learning to build a life together. That's something truly beautiful. I'll see you in Module 4, where we're going to get real about debt, transparency, and those difficult money conversations that every couple needs to have. So until then, enjoy putting your new financial structure into practice.